So I get a lot of questions about becoming an adjuster or just getting into the insurance industry in general. So I figure why not just do a video for y'all.
You in the past, I'm in the future. You mad that they don't salute you. I need a bag.
Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you're new here, my name is Keely Trishan and I make videos on lifestyle, insurance, and mental health. I also do vlogs, day in the life in the insurance industry, day in the life with a toddler, all the things. If that's something that interests you, go on ahead and click that subscribe button below. Be sure to turn on your notifications so you don't miss anything from me. If you're returning, thank you so much for coming back and thank you for your support. Okay, so I get a ton of questions on my videos, like past videos, new videos, and all of that, just kind of asking how to get into the insurance industry. There are a lot of different paths you can take, and honestly, it can vary from state to state, from individual to individual, situation to situation. But I'm here to give you guys 5 tips to break into the insurance industry if it's something that you're looking to do. So if you're interested and you feel like this information can help you, definitely go on ahead and stay tuned. Okay, so jumping right in, my first tip is going to be to research the field. This is one of those fields where you don't really know what you're getting into until you know what you're getting into. Like, you kind of are in the thick of it. I'm going to be honest and say that, like, I kind of had an idea of what adjusters did before I got into the field, but it really, really sunk in once I got my first, entry level position. You see all the nuances, all the things that go on. I feel like sometimes as a consumer, like if you've ever had a claim and you've worked with an adjuster, sometimes you might you just don't realize what's going on because obviously you're going through a tough time, so you don't realize what the adjuster is going through. Not to say that it excuses anybody, but it's a very detailed job and it can be very stressful because you've got complex situations going on and you've got people that are anxious to get the money they need to get their life back to normal. So I would recommend watching videos like this. Like I said, I'm a field adjuster, so through watching my videos, you can kind of see what my day-to-day looks like. I'd recommend looking up videos for staff adjusters. You could even Google this information. I would look up information for independent adjusters because that might be a different route if you're not looking to work for an actual insurance company, if you kind of want to have a little more freedom. There's an independent adjuster, but then you also have public adjusters. So that's another thing. You want to research the role and research the responsibilities. See if this is something that would actually make sense for you. I do feel like even with that research, you don't really know until you get in it, but it is kind of helpful to look up the information to see if this is even something that will work with your personality. I know some people in my personal life, like when I tell them what I do on a day-to-day, they're just like, you know what, I'm gonna let you go on ahead and keep that because it's a lot of customer interaction. It's a lot of long days sometimes. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of nuances. Like when I'm working, a lot of times I can't really multitask with other things because I have to be focused because there's so many moving pieces. There's some things that I can do mindlessly, but some, like if I'm reviewing a policy or, trying to figure out like a tough situation, I kind of have to zone in. That's not for everybody. Also, there's so many claims coming at you at once. You have to have really good routines. You have to have really good work ethic. It's a lot of things that go into it. It's not a mindless job. It's something that you have to kind of put your all into if you're going to be successful. So I would recommend like Googling, YouTubing, stuff like that, to kind of see what real people's like experiences are so you can determine if it's something that you actually want to pursue. Okay, so the second step to becoming an adjuster is kind of looking into the education and training that you'll need to become an adjuster. If you do step 1 and you're like, okay, I kind of want to pursue it, think about your education and training. So most companies are going to want you to at least have a high school diploma. That's like the bare minimum. So if you do not have your high school diploma, work on getting your GED so you can, have something to present to show that you've completed that general coursework. There are going to be some companies that require a bachelor's degree. Usually it's not a specific bachelor's degree. I have a degree in marketing and I've been able to fulfill that. I've got colleagues that have degrees in political science, that have degrees in biology. Like, it doesn't really matter what your degree is in. Some companies just want to see that 4-year degree on your resume. You also have companies, and this is going to kind of depend on the company and the state. Some companies are going to want you to come in licensed or be able to get licensed during like your first few months of employment. So my particular situation, when I started, I work in California, first off. So California is not a state that requires licensing. However, there are some companies that will want you to be licensed because you'll be working on other states' claims. So the first carrier that I worked for did not require that I have a license. They were okay with me just working off the company's license, but I was only able to work on California claims. I could work on some Texas claims, but very surface level. But yeah, they didn't really want me touching like other states' claims. It was just California claims. The other carrier that I worked for when I was doing homeowner claims, they required licensing because you did have to kind of work on whatever came to you, especially during catastrophes. So I didn't have to pay for my licensing up front. They actually provided me with the coursework and the certification and all that stuff. I just had to do the studying, pass the test. They paid for it. It was a Florida license, and the Florida license, if you don't know, is transferable to the surrounding states. We had a department that was able to do that paperwork for us. So don't ask me to do the paperwork because I don't know. I actually have to figure it out for this next round because I'm coming up on my anniversary that I'm going to have to like renew. So I'll find that information out and I'll share it once I know. But the company that I work for, they did all that information on my behalf. So I was able to take the licensing test, pass it, and then they paid for it up front. And they also got me certified in the surrounding states where the Florida license was transferable. So I would recommend just kind of looking on your state's Department of Insurance website. Like for California, it's the California DOI. So you would look on your state's requirements on their website, and they'll kind of give you all the information that you need to become certified if that's something that you're looking to do. Okay, the next step, and probably one of the more obvious steps, is to gain experience in the industry. So the easiest way to do that as somebody that's coming in who's never worked in insurance is to look for entry-level roles. I get that question a lot, like, how do you get in, and what do I do and all of that. I can't give you all the answers there because I started close to 10 years ago. So things were a little bit different. But what I did do is I looked for an adjuster position that required no experience, like no previous experience. The only thing that I needed to have was customer service experience. The thing is, with a lot of these jobs, they want to kind of train you on their way to do things. So even once you get experience, if you start moving around different carriers, if you've been watching my videos, I've moved around to a few. I know how to be an adjuster, but I do have to kind of learn the company's way of doing things. So that's just going to be across the board. But you want to look for like entry-level roles or trainee roles, things like that, a role that's going to like really teach you how to be an adjuster. There are a lot of moving pieces, and I think the biggest learning curve for me was realizing that the job is not black and white. There's not one way to do something. Sometimes you have to get creative, and sometimes that can be intimidating for like a new adjuster because you just want to follow this rule book, but sometimes there's not a rule book. You do have your policy that you're going to adhere to, and so it's important to kind of like learn that as long as it's within the policy, you can get creative with the backing of your manager, your department, all that stuff. You don't want to just be acting reckless or nothing, but you'll start to kind of learn those tools to be able to resolve your claims, because there's going to be a different situation with each claim. Like no two claims are the same. So I think like learning that mindset is going to be the biggest like thing to help you be successful, but you won't learn that until you get into the industry. I feel like even with all the certifications, all that stuff, like you don't really know how to adjust until you start adjusting. So look for entry-level positions. A lot of those positions are in auto from what I've seen. There's definitely entry-level positions in workers' comp and homeowners and stuff like that. But I feel like the easiest way to kind of grasp how to investigate and how to like work your claims, like develop your customer service when talking to your insurers is in auto. The one thing I noticed with auto is that there's only so many parts to a vehicle, and typically there's only one policy. So you've got just your vehicle policy. You have the things that are covered. You've got the things that aren't covered. You have the liability section, stuff like that. It's usually easier to grasp because you're only referring back to one policy with most carriers. So some have different policies depending on if you're doing like just regular auto, commercial auto, things like that. But in homeowners, from what I've seen, what makes it a little more difficult is there's a few different policies. So it's like not only are you learning to adjust, but you're learning the different policies. You've got your regular homeowners policy, you've got your condo policies, the tenant policy, and then the landlord policy. So it's a lot of different like moving pieces. So I personally feel like when you're coming in, it's easier to just kind of work with one, learn how to like maneuver the policy, learn how to do your job, and then kind of branch out into different departments or different areas if you so choose. But yeah, main thing is going to be to kind of get in there, get your feet wet, and see what the job is about to see if it makes sense for you long term. Okay, so the fourth step, kind of piggybacking off of the second step, is to obtain your adjuster licensing. Now, although like some states don't require licensing, I personally feel like if you're going to be in this industry, if it's something that you get in and you're like, okay, I can do this, and you want to move around different departments, get your licensing, because you can actually request more money when you have your licensing. Like I said, my company was able to kind of sponsor me and like pay for things up front, but there are situations where you might pay for it up front and then get reimbursed by your company, or you might just have to pay for it out of pocket, like if that's the route that you want to go. I always steer clear of trying to pay for things up front. If the company's going to pay for it for me, I'm going to let them do that. So that's my advice, but I've never been an independent adjuster or a public adjuster, so I don't know how that works. I'm sure I'll get that question. I just want to put it out there. I don't know how it works for them. But if you're interested in being like a staff adjuster, a lot of times your company will help you with that. Even if you work for a company that does not require licensing, what I found is that if they see that you have interest, they will reimburse you for the fees, once you like obtain your actual license and stuff like that. So check with your company, see what they're willing to do. A lot of times with insurance companies, they are willing to invest in their employees in that way. So I would check that out, if you feel you can dedicate the time to it, because it does take time. I will say for me, it was kind of wrapped up in a bow because the company required it to be done within like the first 3 months of me being employed. And while I was waiting to go to training, that's like all I did for the day. So it took me a good like 2.5 to 3 weeks. And this is with me studying and like going through the modules like 8 hours a day. It's a lot. It is a lot. So make sure that you're taking notes and stuff along the way, because the test is technically closed book. So you want to make sure that you are prepared and you have the information that you need to be able to pass the test. But yeah, definitely something that I recommend, because if they're choosing between an adjuster that's licensed and an adjuster that's not licensed, a lot of times the person that's licensed is going to be more valuable, because it just shows seriousness. It shows that this is what you're trying to do. So I recommend getting licensing, whether that be before you come into the industry or after you've gotten your feet wet and you decide that it's for you. Go on ahead and pursue it. There's also some other certifications that I'm looking at as we speak. There is a CPCU, and then there's another one called an AIC. I don't know what they stand for, okay? I should know, but I don't know yet because I don't have them. The CPCU is, it's like a certification in insurance, almost like a vocational degree type in insurance. That's the best way I can describe it. But it's also similar to where there's a lot of like studying, and you kind of have to set aside the time for it. My company has told me that they are willing to, give me the time to take the test, and they'll also, I don't know if they're going to pay for it or if I would have to pay first and get reimbursed, but either way, it's another kind of like notch on my belt, if I choose to move around again, go to a different department, or even, move out of this company. Having my licensing in CPCU is going to make me more valuable. So I always recommend that if it's available to you and it's something that that you can afford, especially if they're willing to reimburse you or even pay for it up front. Definitely take advantage, make arrangements so you can, get your coins. Like that's why we're doing this. We're not doing it for free. We're trying to, make money and make a decent living. So get your certifications. Okay, so the last step in becoming an adjuster is to stay on top of like industry trends and continue learning and development. I got my little notepad right here, so that's what I'm looking over. Continue your learning and development, especially after you get licensed or get your certifications. Typically, in order to keep them up, you do have to do a certain amount of coursework like every couple of years to make sure that your licensing stays valid. I'm actually in that process right now because, like I was saying earlier in the video, I got licensed in 2021, and this year my license is going to expire. So I believe it's like 24 credits that you need to complete over that period in order to keep your licensing. I've completed 20 credits. I still have 4 to go. So I've got like a couple more classes I need to take just to make sure that my licensing stays up to date. So even without that, you still want to make sure that you're watching videos. There's a site called PLRB. They have a lot of like super useful videos and just like information on industry trends and things that are going on that you should stay up on if you're going to be doing this job. When I first started, there was also I don't even know if the website website is still around. If I can find it, I will put it in the description box. But there was a website that my company had me take a look at that had videos on just like different scenarios, like different special investigations unit scenarios, different like arson trends. Like it was a lot of information, like things that really give you like a good perspective of the things that you'll see once you start like doing this job. A lot of them actually are pretty interesting. Like I know it can sound boring, but it's pretty cool sometimes just to kind of learn you know, what different crimes are going on and stuff like that, things that you will come into contact with when you are doing your claims. I think it is important to understand that as an adjuster, you are a trained investigator. After you do this job, you will be able to find out anything because it's your job to kind of like spot fraud. It's your job to you know, look at different trends, you know, research the person's history, things like that. If you come into contact with a vendor that kind of gives you a funny feeling and you have that vendor on different projects, it's your job to stay on top of that. And taking these classes kind of helps you to strengthen these like investigator skills, and it just makes you like so much better and more valuable at your job. Even though it's a requirement in a lot of cases to keep your licensing and to keep your certifications, it can be so helpful just even in your personal life. I feel like I'm Inspector Gadget after, you know, taking all these classes and stuff. So yeah, definitely like stay on top of your continued education and development because it only makes you better as an adjuster. And then if you choose to move into management or, you know, any other department, super helpful, and you know, makes you just like more confident in doing your job. All right, you guys, so that's all I have for you today. Again, I get this question a lot, like asking how to get into this industry. And it's not really an easy answer, only because, you know, I have my path, but then I've known other people to have different paths. There's so many different ways that you can get into it. But first things first, like research this industry and see if it's something that you actually want to do. See if it's something that would make sense for you. And honestly, even if you don't know, the best way to get experience is to kind of just jump in and get your hands dirty. That was basically what I did. Like I saw that, okay, it looks like it's a you know, 9 to 5 type schedule. Well, more like 8 to 5 type schedule. It was Monday through Friday, you know, something that seemed like it was stable. And from there, I, you know, started doing the job. I liked it. I really enjoyed it. I'm gonna say to date, my first job, I started in total loss vehicles. That's been my favorite role so far. And believe it or not, it was in the office. If you've been watching for a while, you know I work from home. And I have been working from home since 2017. But my first job before that, I was working in an office and I loved it. I loved my team. I actually enjoyed the job. Yes, I had some difficult insurers and, you know, just some difficult days, but for the most part, I really, 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 really enjoyed that job. Now, I'm going to say like the job after that, the job I had after that, I hated and I thought that was going to run me out of insurance, but it didn't. It is one of those things where, you know, I think it's important to keep in mind that one, it's not for everybody, but then two, you do have to move around sometimes to figure out what fits you. You could be in a situation where you just love it all the time, but you could also be in a situation where you have tough management, you have a tough area that you work, and it could just make the job a drag. I would recommend, like, if you get into this industry and you're not really feeling what you're doing, give it a chance. Try different departments, try different teams and things like that. Even try different companies. I feel like it's something that a lot of us can do and it's underrated. When I talk to people, sometimes they don't realize that they could really make like a decent living in insurance. And, you know, as far as myself, it's something that I see myself doing for the foreseeable future. I will say I don't want to always do claims, but I see myself in the insurance industry for the foreseeable future. Like, it's definitely a hidden gem. And, you know, if you're looking to make decent money, have some good benefits, and just have something stable, looking to get you an insurance job. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, if you learned something, and if you like videos like this, definitely give me a thumbs up. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you made it this far and have not subscribed, please go ahead and click that subscribe button below. Turn on your notifications so you don't miss anything from me. With that being said, you guys have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time.
You mad, they don't salute you. I need a bag, size is super. They turned your back, it's like I never knew your leader.